How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to the Blue Shifting and welcome back to Pain. I mean, this series always is painful, but this is like too real painful. That's kind of the stuff. And a lot of you were pretty quick to talk about that. I guess the tidbit that many of you shared with me is that the writer was a social worker, and that this is likely pulling from real like experiences or stories that he personally witnessed or heard about or such things. You know, like this idea, it's like it feels it's too detailed and like and knowing that there's an association in the same kind of work, it makes sense. So unfortunately, this is striking too close to home in a lot of fronts. I think I mentioned that last time, but I think it's important to talk about too. Like, yeah, this is a fictional story, and you know, up until now, it's all been very metaphysical and very like kind of hypothetical, almost you could say, like kind of worst case scenarios or these ideal like situations for terrible things to happen. Unfortunately, this one's a bit too realistic and a bit too common. And so yeah, seeing Satoko being in a terrible position like that and literally there being nothing to do. And someone also pointed out in a comment that I do want to highlight here is that often in order to try and extradite a child from an abusive situation like this, it's very difficult. You have to have some very like obvious evidence, and in a way that's probably a good thing, because if it's too easy, it could be potentially like it's a very traumatic thing to break up a family. Granted, when things get bad enough, it is a better solution, and it's good that there are systems in place to try and help with that. But drawing that line of like how far is too far can be really, really tough, because it's like the trauma and the strain of pulling someone away from family is so severe that you have to try and like you have to wait for this point where it's like, is it better than not? And like defining that can be tough, especially in a situation like this where there's like a malicious compliance going on, where her uncle pretty much understands where that line is. He's very careful to walk right up to it to make sure he can get as much as he wants of whatever he's seeking. You know, there's some type of like evil pleasure and evil like control that he has and wants to have. But also understanding the law, understanding like just how far he can go without causing trouble. And that's what's really disgusting, is that it's any system in the world, no matter what, like culturally or legally, like whatever it is, there's going to be people who are twisted enough that they're going to do whatever they can to take advantage of it. Like you hear people talk about like the welfare systems, and that's the thing, is like the real fact of it is that 99% of the people who are in a welfare system, they need it. They just need it, and they're doing what they can to try and get their way out of it. It's that tiny fraction that does actively abuse the system and try to make it so that they can get away with as much as possible, that get the bad rap. And the thing is that all systems, all organization, whether governmental, religious, community-based, or family-based, there's going to be people who are just in it to take advantage of the system. And so what we're seeing is, unfortunately, someone who's doing just that, taking advantage of the system. A system that is designed to try and be as uninvasive as possible whilst protecting people. And so when you have some of that malicious compliance, somebody who's willing to walk the line just enough, it gets really dark, because then it feels like there's just nothing you can do when there's someone should be doing. So really tough topics, really two real things that I've seen, I'm sure you've seen. And even if you don't know the details, there's a good chance that you've seen it at some form or some way. I've had family, unfortunately, who are in a situation. In fact, I was thinking about, maybe I'll see like I could share it later, but I guess like the big detail is that what I personally have witnessed, I don't know if I maybe mentioned this last time, but I've seen is I had family who were clearly going through a similar situation to this. Maybe not quite this egregious, but at times it was. And what really sucks is that when one of the parents was like, it's like there was the abusive parent and the not abusive parent. And the not abusive parent kind of was complicit in the fact that they weren't doing anything about it. But eventually, they got really concerned, ended up calling in authorities, and could have pressed charges. It would have likely led to some legal results. However, upon receiving counseling from a religious leader, they not only didn't press the charges, but they decided that it was better to keep the family together rather than to end the abuse. So that's my personal experience with this type of situation, is seeing a situation bad enough that somebody could have gone to prison for it, and instead they were allowed to stay around. And they were encouraged by the people in the community who should have been there to protect, children and families, advising that divorce was far worse, apparently. That sucks. And it sucks when it feels like optics become more important than, safety. So yeah. This is gonna be fun. Let's buckle up. Let's see how much we can stand before we need to take a break. So, depending on how long these chapters go, and also how much I'm feeling emotionally capable of coping, we'll see how this goes. Anyway, that's a real long intro. Let's jump right in. I went home, washed the day's sweat off in the shower. Normally, I could reset everything by taking a shower and forgetting all the bad things. But that didn't happen today. I got out of the shower to find fresh underwear placed neatly in the laundry basket. Normally, I didn't stop to think about it, but today I felt happy at my mother's consideration. At the same time, however, it made me realize how much Satoko must be suffering. At the very moment I was appreciating this gentle kindness, Satoko was being bruised by her uncle's cruel words. I went up to the second floor, shut myself in my bedroom. Then, facing my desk, I folded my arms. My topics of thought, of course, was Satoko. We thought about that if we could just get a public agency to intervene in the right way, the problem would be solved. But with what the coach said, I didn't think it would be so easy. Satoko was obstinate. She would stubbornly deny the abuse and try to endure it. And that was an act of atonement towards Satoshi, who had protected her before and then run away. As long as she thought that way, the situation wouldn't be so simple. But earlier, before coach, I made a clear declaration. If I thought Satoko was in danger, then I would do what I had to. In the end, that meant I was just going to wait and see too. Nevertheless, I thought I'd draw a clearer line than coach or my friends had. If the time came, I would report it. Over the phone. Given Satoko's personality, she might criticize me if she found out. But I believed it was ultimately the best decision. Wait, Keiichi Maribara? Would that really be all it took for the problem to end? Say that I reported it to the public agency like the Child Consultation Center. What if they stuck to their wait-and-see attitude like last year again? Last year, they decided to do just that, and the situation improved temporarily, but then the aunt, thinking herself a laughingstock, increased her tormenting in secret. In the end, things became much more underhanded than ever before. This year was her uncle. I had just seen for the first time today, but the man seemed much more direct, much more violent than the word underhanded could imply. He wasn't like their aunt. No, not the subtle. He was more direct. He might also assault her with punches and kicks. That could easily be discerned from the bruises I saw on Satoko's body. Shoot, you're too naive, Keiichi Maibara. However heroic it might seem to report what was happening, if it doesn't save her, then it doesn't mean anything. Reporting things to a public agency was only one option, and leaving everything to them would be dangerous. We would need something more to guarantee Satoko's safety. I scratched madly in my head, thinking, then tilted it back, wanting at least a little bit of calm. The memories of angry arguing with my friends today came to mind. I was embarrassed I hadn't realized until Rena said something. She was right. My house is big. Compared to all the houses with the straw-thatched roofs in Hinamizawa, it was really big. We did actually have empty rooms. I'd never thought that we were affluent, but I also never that we were poor. I just didn't admit it because people would think I was arrogant. But maybe my family really is wealthy. Oh, absolutely. No, you gotta always remember, you live in a first world country. If you have, and you're doing pretty well. If you have a solid constructed house, you have a room for basically every individual in the home, or an extra room. If you have clean running water consistently guaranteed to you, if you have consistent power in your home, like, you're basically rich. Like, it's weird because you get such a skewed point of view because you're not rich, and you definitely have to work hard and struggle to have what you have. But there are people who work harder than us. There are people in the world who work much harder than I do, who have much less than I do. And I need to always remember that, and I think we all need to. Doesn't mean that you can't use that as a dismissive tool, because no matter what challenges we're facing, they suck, and we all have our own battles to face, and they're not like, I don't know, you can't put that scale on the same thing for different people, because there's different amounts of everybody. But it's always important to remember, like, if you have things like running water and easy and access to electricity, you're already in the top, like, I don't know, 10% of the world, basically. Now, granted, there are a lot of places in the world that have power and have running water, but there's a lot of places in the world where those are luxuries. Not everyone has those, and those that do probably have systems that we would consider archaic. But that's just because the world is not even at all. There's a lot of disparity between different people. We had a few rooms we could lend to Satoko. The guest rooms are only in use when people related to my dad's job come and stay every once in a while. Plus, if we cleaned up a few of the rooms my dad used it for storage, they could work for her as well. Dang, he hasn't got a big house. As for food expenses, that might have been a more serious problem than a kid like me could imagine. Lunch every day would be manageable. All of our friends would just have to bring a little bit more for lunch than they usually did. With everyone pecking at everyone else's food anyway, it would be manageable. For breakfast and dinner, though, that would have to be up to Mom. I would need to convince her to lend Satoko more than just a room. Of course, I don't even think convincing her of that would be easy. Really? I don't know, dude. In a situation like this, I don't know. I feel like it's a fairly reasonable ask. And well, yeah, it gets an increased food price, but it's not the most egregious. Compared to other things, that's not that much. Like, having extra room in your home is usually the more expensive, problem to tackle. About how much did it cost for one person to eat? How many tens of thousands of yen per month? They couldn't complain about it if I shouldered that, could they? I only had 10 or 20,000 yen in savings, but it was something. I actually had even more thanks to New Year's gifts and stuff, but my parents had to take all that and put it in a fixed time deposit. Well, that's because they're smart. If I could get access to that, it should add up to a lot of money. And if I got that far, I should ask Miana and Rena to share some of the burden. Of course, I wouldn't depend on that. Rena got mad at me, didn't she? About how I shouldn't just shove responsibility onto others. I'd have to ask for help. Also, that's a good life lesson I've learned, unfortunately. Now, it's been through things that are more fun related, but I have learned this, that it's actually something that's come around with the YouTube channel. When I first started the channel, I really wanted to get off the ground a podcast, because not only were they kind of popular at the time, which, it was, foundational to what is now like podcasts like Mecca, which is like just everywhere. So I wanted to start a podcast, and I wanted to do it with friends that I had a lot in common with. I thought it would be a natural thing. Like, oh yeah, we can just talk like we normally do, right? Tried to make the podcast and quickly realized that for a lot of people, content creation is not the same as just having a conversation. And there's a lot of times where friends or people talk about like, oh yeah, I'd love to make YouTube videos. Oh yeah, I'd love to do a podcast. But then getting to actually starting, you quickly find that for most people, they just, I don't know. The reality of it is hard. And I think that happens with things too, like other things too. Like, oh yeah, let's go have a board game night. Oh yeah, let's get together and do this, or go out and like on the town a little bit. And sometimes you'll find that people will say that they want to do certain things, and they probably do, but then when reality comes, when it comes to making the time commitment or pushing themselves or putting in the effort, they just lose that interest. And like, again, this happens most often for me in the creative spaces, like collaborations, podcasts, all of that type of stuff. Making content as a group, quickly find after even a little bit that other people most people in my life just don't find that interesting or engaging enough. They're just not willing to put that time commitment in. They don't find that something that they want to prioritize. And it's not saying that they're not like dependable. They are. But it's just a fact of life that not everyone finds it is engaging, and thus they aren't going to engage with it. And that can be hard too, because then it feels like they're kind of phoning it in if they are doing it. So yeah, like when it comes to trying to do something, whether it be a community project or a fun or a hobby or anything, like you can't build your expectations around the assumption that you'll have the help that you think you will. Because even people with the best of intentions might not be able, capable, or emotionally available to pull the trigger and to actually help. And so you need to operate off of a stance that I've learned over time, which is I'm going to do this regardless, and if you want to join me, you can. Then thus you have things like my channel. Thus you have things like my projects, my personal projects, my D&D campaign, and everything else. Like it's basically driven by this is happening whether you show up or not. If you want to show up, then you should. And that's kind of how I find a lot of joy in my life. It's also vacations too. Like when I went out on my big trip, I didn't try and coordinate with all my family saying, hey, like you should, like let's plan this whole thing out. I instead took the approach of, hey, I'm doing this thing. If you can join me, please do. If not, that's fine. I'm doing it anyway. And that worked really well. And so that can be helpful. But in a situation like this, Keiichi he keeps assuming he's going to have help. He shouldn't do that. He needs to assume that he only has access to what he's capable of pulling off, and maybe his parents if he can get them to agree, but he shouldn't assume that they will. Even so, I'd basically been saving her myself. I would follow through on it. Oh, but I wouldn't be the only food expense. There would be lots of other things that you wouldn't be able to do without, like baths and laundry. My mother was awfully methodical and strict about cutting out inefficiencies, and for once, that was troublesome. She might make reference to the money it would cost for the detergent Satoko would use on her own clothes. Couldn't think about only food expenses. I needed more money. Hey, wait, Keiichi Maribara, since when was this all about money? Even if you could afford it, you would need your parents' permission first. They'd be looking after a young girl for a really long time. What would I say to persuade them? Just calm down a little bit, Keiichi Maribara, and you'll realize right away you can't. Even if you ask them seriously, they would tell you to call the police. Even if you manage to gain their empathy, why should the Maribara family have to shoulder all the burden by itself? That's what would happen. That was it. I was very sad and frustrating, but no matter how much I wanted to help, my resolution alone couldn't save anything.
そんなにも子供って無力なのかよ。
Fortunately, yes, even adults are pretty powerless in a lot of these situations. Because again, it kind of comes down to the idea of like, besides just hoping the authorities can take care of it, the only other option you can really count on is you taking it up yourself. But asking, like, dropping everything and adopting a child on a whim, that's a pretty big ask. Nobody would deny that that's a load to do. But that's the thing is like, if not you, who? If not now, when? I felt frustrated. I believed my feelings were stronger than anyone else's. I even thought that they were stronger than Coach's. And yet... At that point, there were 2 knocks on my door, and Mom poked her head inside.
起きてたの？さっきからご飯ってずっと呼んでるわよ。
あ、うん。今行く。
I still think you should talk to him, though. As someone financially dependent on his parents, I shouldn't say this, but I just sat around doing nothing, and food suddenly appeared. It felt so natural to me that I'd shamelessly thought of it as a responsibility of the parents who gave birth to me. But when I realized the natural thing was actually a right, I came to realize just how hard it was to grant that privilege to others. Even the boring meal in front of me, no better than it ever was, had more meaning than that tonight. There was food for 3 on the table right now, for Dad, my Mom, and for me. I couldn't imagine how hard it would be to add another plate at the table. Think Keiichi Maribara. If it was hard to make food for 4, then just think about how 4 people could eat food made for 3. Oh. I changed around the way I thought, and with that I began to consider an unthinkably bold plan. That's right. I didn't need to get my parents' permission. She should just live here in secret. I got upset when I found out a while ago, but if I remembered right, if you climbed out the window then shimmied down to the first floor or the gutter, you could go in and out of the house directly from my room. Satoko's physical abilities far surpass my own, so it would be even easier for her. I hadn't even thought about it, but her living here secretly was actually a necessity. I'd only have to bring Satoko to my house, and the public agency said they would wait and see. In other words, if Satoko's uncle continued to be her guardian. If, in such situations, word got out that she were here, her uncle would barge in and drag Satoko back with him. Her uncle was her rightful guardian, so my parents would hand her over without an argument, no doubt. So I needed to keep it a secret that she was living here. If it needed to be a secret, then having my parents' help would mean a lot, but I gotta deceive your allies first, like they always say. I don't know about this, dude. This plan seems rickety at best. Okay. Persuading my parents was an unrealistic position, so I'll search for a way to have her live here in secret. I'm not sure that's gonna work, bro. When I was around, she would just have to be really quiet in my room on the second floor. The issue was the daytime. If she was hiding from her uncle, then she couldn't go to school. I might be lonely, but not going would be the better option. I could easily teach Satoko the same thing, the stuff she learns in her grade. Actually, during school, I mostly help all the younger kids out rather than studying my own stuff. During the day, I would need to go to school, so I wouldn't be at home. My parents respected my privacy now that I was this age, so they wouldn't go snooping around in my room while I was gone. I think. If she hold herself up in my room, it would be okay, right? If my parents did come, thanks to where the second floor was, she could hear the approach from the sound of them coming up the stairs. And there would be a little bit of time before she got all the way up, I estimate a few seconds, that she would be able to hide herself in the closet. Wait, Keiichi. Something doesn't make sense. If she can't go to school, then what'll she do for lunch? Calm down already. I could just leave her in my own lunch, couldn't I? Should just go to school without lunch and get everyone else to split theirs with me. Okay, that's good. No more contradictions or oversights, right? Except for big glaring ones like, why, what, besides getting her out of that house, how does this benefit Satoko? Is her being basically a house cat really an alternative that's going to be a good workable solution here? Oh, breakfast and dinner. I could somehow get her to go without breakfast. I could go 2 meals a day when I sleep on a Sunday after all. Every night I'd pretend as though I had a bigger appetite and then ask for a bigger helping. And then I could just somehow give part of it out to Satoko. As a test, I stood up from my seat with my plate and my fish in my hands.
どうしたの、ケイチ。ご飯は座って食べなさい。
ちょっと気分が変えたくなってさ。自分の部屋で食べてもいいかな。
ボロボロ落として食事は食卓で食べなさい。
ごめん。
Hey, wait. I only tried to take away 1 plate of fish and they ganged up on me? In reality, it was impossible for me to smuggle food away without my parents knowing about it. But it must have been worth taking the time to think about. There must be some trick, some method to avoiding them realizing. Even if I can't think of one, maybe I might think of one tomorrow. My appetite was rapidly fading, so I finished early and went back to my room. I went back there and tried to think about it from Satoko's point of view. For example, let's say my parents are coming up the stairs right now. I've got to hide. I opened the closet. Clatter, clatter. Didn't open quietly. Hey, wait. Didn't I always open real smooth and quiet? Why was it suddenly doing this now? Was this house even structurally safe? Was it already showing signs of dilapidation? Or were the hinges just not greased well enough? Could I just apply some lubricating wax? The sound itself may have been soft, but it left me uneasy as to whether my parents would detect it happening when they climbed the stairs. But this was an easy problem. I could do something about it. I just had to fix it up a little bit so it didn't make any noise anymore. For now, I'll close myself in the closet as though I'd successfully hid. I basically always left my futon out on the floor. I couldn't think of any real reason my parents would want to go into my closet. Even so, there still might be some reason they would. Might need to construct some sort of camouflage so that it wouldn't be noticed even if they did open it. But the more she worried about that, the less time she'd have to actually hide, meaning it would be more likely they'd hear a noise. And then I suddenly had to go to the bathroom. The bathroom? The need to use the toilet, so obvious and yet such a fatal flaw. The only bathroom was on the first floor. It would be absolutely impossible for her to use it without my family realizing. I might need to set up a portable toilet like a chamber pot, I guess. Satoko would hate it, so she could get in my room. But the stench would be pretty terrible. Anyone sensitive would probably notice the smell without even coming into the room. The bath was okay, though. She could just take a bath when my parents were out. But I couldn't do anything about a toilet. When her stomach started to hurt, if my parents were lazing around downstairs, she'd be in trouble. It was then I noticed that I'd been clawing at my head with both hands. I sat down in the dark closet with my knees against my chest. I buried my face in them and tore at my hair. The more I thought, the more contradictions popped up. The more I thought, the more things failed. And the more I worried, the more I was reminded of how little power I actually had. My back started to hurt from staying in a cramped place for so long. But if I was to shelter Satoko, I would need to force her to feel this pain. To live in such a dark, narrow, suffocating place forever. But it would still be better than being abused by her uncle, or so I wanted to think. It got hard to breathe, so I gave in and crawled out of the closet. I looked at the clock. To my surprise, it was 3:30 in the morning. I had felt like so little time, but it was unbelievably long. When I realized that, I was slammed with a terrible urge to sleep as if time had only just caught up with me. I didn't have enough strength to fight it, and I fell flat on my futon. Shoot, I can't go to sleep like this. If I waste any time, that'll mean taking the same wait-and-see attitude that Mion and Coach and everyone else did. I needed to keep worrying about how to rescue Satoko for a minute or even a second longer than everyone else. Isn't there a better way? Isn't there a better way? Also, though, bro, you're saying that you're like desperately trying to find a solution and trying to feel like comfort. He's trying to comfort himself so much that he's getting to the point where he just says, "If I just think hard enough about the problem, that makes me better than everyone else." That's not going to actually solve any problems, though. That one phrase I spoke to myself swirled around and around in a spiral and steadily took over my entire mind. For my last moment of consciousness, I thought, there were a lot of blind spots in what I'd considered tonight, but I absolutely wasn't wrong for having those ideas. Tomorrow I would suggest this bold plan to others. Mion might be able to help somehow. Rena was sharp, so she might have a good suggestion. And above all, we needed to rescue Satoko once again with everyone helping out. I felt pathetic for letting myself fall asleep. I'm sorry, Satoko. It's like, what else can you do, though, man? That was a long transition. The ceiling blurred into view. It was hot. There was a thin layer of moist sweat on me. The voices of cicadas permeated my room, were somehow grating to my head.
I
remembered today was a weekday and quickly brought myself to consciousness. And then finally I leapt out of bed. The clock read a little before 10. I was totally late. When I wandered downstairs, my mom would get mad at me. There was nothing I could do, though. After reviewing the schedule for the school day for a moment, I suitably rearranged my stuff in my bag. I hurriedly got dressed and went down the stairs. There was no sign of my parents anywhere. Maybe they went out somewhere together. So that's how it was. My mother had probably woke me up once this morning, but then I fell back asleep without remembering it. And my parents, thinking I'd gone to school, left. Something like that probably happened. I went to the front door, and as expected, it was locked. Looked like I was right. It was further evidence of my speculation being correct. When I realized my parents weren't here, I suddenly felt less like I had to rush to get to school. What about Rena, though? Wouldn't she have been worried? There was one portion of breakfast left in the dining room. Probably mine. The milk they'd poured in it had gone warm since a while ago. When I realized how hard it would be to sneak food for Satoko, yesterday I had cried. Well, thinking back on it, food wasn't the only issue in that regard. I wasn't in a position where I could care for Satoko by myself anyway. It's such a heavy thing just to save a single person. I'd seen this on TV and in comics all the time. Those feel-good words about how you'll save your friends for sure and such. Was that why I ran my mouth like that, swearing to save her because I wanted to feel good about it? No, that absolutely wasn't true. Because the fact was I couldn't save her. Because I didn't want to think like an adult, like I couldn't do anything but watch. Had Satoko gone to school today? I immediately realized that it was a meaningless question. Whether or not she did, there wouldn't be a change in the environment she'd been placed in. If I couldn't save her, then nobody else could either. Then we could only pray for a miracle. Are we so powerless? With a vague goal of getting into school in mind, I sluggishly put on my shoes and stumbled out the front door. I had only overslept by 2 or 3 hours, but the sunlight and the air felt completely different from how they usually were in the morning. Well, of course they did. Once 10 o'clock came around, you could barely call it morning anymore. I didn't feel like walking the same old route to school. I needed to ultimately end up there, but I was like, I didn't want to choose the shortest route, the most productive one to get to school. Put in a more positive light, maybe I wanted some time to walk by myself and think. I had to go to school, partly to make sure Satoko was safe. But I hadn't come up with any plans yet. Nothing since last night. So the path I took from my house was in a complete opposite direction. If I went this way, I'd pass Rena's house and the dam site. It would be quite a detour. I calculated how long of a detour it would end up being, then satisfied with the answer, I started to walk. Rena had brought me to the dam site a few times. One section of it had turned into an unlawful, oversized garbage dump, and Rena really liked going fishing for junk in there. Without that, she'd come off as a completely normal girl, too. Are you sure about that? I can think of a few other qualities she could do without, but whatever. We have not been here in a while. The view quickly opened up wide and I was hit with a strong wind. There was no shelter. This is a big dam site. Maybe it was a good thing I came here, I thought. At the very least, it was more healthy to think about stuff in a place like this instead of a cramped bedroom. I took a deep breath and filled my lungs with the rich, cool air unique to Hinamizawa. Ring, ring. I turned around reflexively. It was a bicycle bell. Considering where I was standing, I didn't think they were trying to get me out of the way. They'd rung the bell because they wanted something from me. Oh!
いやあ、申し訳ないね。
Interesting running into you.
君、Hinamizawaの人だよね。
そうですけど。
I've seen this person around a few times. Right, I remembered. His name, I think, was Tomitake-san. Tomitake, a freelance photographer who lived in Tokyo. He would zealously visit Hinamizawa every season to take pictures, or so Mion and the others told me, I think.
古出神社ってここからどう行けばいいか教えてもらえないかい？マップを宿に置いてきちゃったみたいでね。困ってたんだよ。
ここから神社ですか？
I knew where everything was in my head, but explaining how to get there was difficult. Tell me about it. I was a little irritated having been bothered for this, but when I realized it meant my detour actually meant something, that feeling faded quickly.
教えてもいいですけど、ちょっと口で説明するのは難しいですよ。一緒でよければ連れて行ってあげますけど。
え？それはかたじけないね。助かるよ。あ、でもいいのかい？君の用事は。
Tomitake-san finally appeared to have realized how strange it was for a student like me to be here at this time of day. I smoothly told him not to worry about it, then turned my back and started walking towards Furude's shrine. Tomitake-san hurried to turn his bike around and came after me.
ごめんごめん。気にしないでくれよ。男には組織を離れて一匹狼になりたい時もあるんだからね。
Yeah, that's true. What a free-minded freelancer. It was easier for me, too, that he was under that impression.
僕は富武、フリーカメラマンさ。専門は野鳥と風景。まだまだ無名だけどね。
It seemed absurd for him to introduce himself when I was just showing him to the shrine, but he gave me his name, so I needed to give mine back.
前原圭一です。まあよろしく。
圭一くんかい。よろしくね。
He seemed like a pretty silly man, but that felt good considering I'd been suffocating over the warrior Satoko all night. Along the way, Tomitake-san spoke at length to me about how precious the nature in Hinamizawa was and how it was a treasure trove of rare wild birds, despite me not having asked. I wasn't interested in what he had to say, but he seemed to be enjoying himself, so I left him to it.
この石段を上がれば神社の境内です。
ありがとう。助かったよ。ああ、ちょっと遅刻しちゃったかな。
As Tomitake-san mumbled to himself, he left his bicycle nearby and started to climb the stairs quickly. I didn't have a watch, but as far as my internal clock could guess, it was still a little late in the morning. School wasn't very far from here. Maybe I could kill a little more time until then. With that in mind, I went up the steps in pursuit of Tomitake-san. When I reached the top of the long staircase, I arrived at the wide open shrine grounds that were too grand looking for this tiny village. Tomitake-san? Oh, there he is. It looked like he was supposed to be meeting someone here. Then he got lost and ended up being late. He was bowing to a lady who must have been the person he was meeting. Yeah, the lady. I knew her.
あら、前原くんじゃない。こんにちは。今日は学校はお休みかしら？
あれ？なんだ、圭一くんついてきたのかい？
別にそんなつもりはないですよ。ただ、 ちょっと時間潰しがしたかっただけです。
あらあら、重役出勤とは優雅なものね。さすがは有名人。今から大物ぶりを発揮してること。
What was I, a celebrity? Well, did say my name out of nowhere anyway. I was oddly concerned about what she meant by famous.
あら、私の名前はまだ思い出せない？
高野美代さんだよ。村の診療所に勤めてる。圭一君は健康そうだから、あまり病院のお世話にはならないかな。
せっかくお知り合いになれたんだから、今度病気か何かできたら、ちょっぴりだけサービスしてあげようかしらね。
The lady named Takano-san, I kind of didn't remember her. Maybe we'd passed each other in the street a few times, but I was pretty sure this is the first time we'd talked. Well, this is Hinamizawa. Even if I don't know a person's name, it's not unusual for them to know mine. I glanced at Takano-san when she saw and saw she had a big bag and a camera.
ひょっとして、二人とも写真仲間ですか？あ、それで待ち合わせを。
仲間でなんてとんでもない。素人の私に、二郎さんが優しく手ほどきをしてくださるだけなのよ。ねえ。
そんなことないよ。高野さんは飲み込みが早いからね。僕の指導なんかなくても、実に自由に撮影をこなすよ。本当さ。
I couldn't tell which of them was ahead in the conversation. Well, they were certainly one couple you wouldn't get tired of watching.
いよいよあさってが綿流しね。今年はいい写真が撮れるといいんだけど。
明日の設営シーンからレンズに収めるつもりだよ。そういう準備風景からもお祭りの活力を捉えたいんだ。
Oh, I just remembered. There was some village festival called Watanagashi or something the day after tomorrow on Sunday.
Hinamizawaの守り神、お社様に感謝するため、古い布団を積み重ねて供養する、そんなお祭りでしたっけ？
あら、ご名答。前原くん。引っ越してきたばかりにしては博識ね。
Yeah, he actually does know a lot this time around.
そう。お社様に感謝するためのお祭り。
Takano-san smiled somehow meaningfully, but it didn't get me what part of the festival to think Oyashiro-sama needed to be laughed at.
やれやれ。高野さんは。でも、どうだろうね、今年は。
2度あることは3度ある。そしてもう4度あったのよ。5度目がないと言える方が何の根拠もないと思うけれど。
Curse time. I knew what they meant by their whispered exchange. On the day of Watanagashi, a freak death always occurred, which people called Oyashiro-sama's curse, and that disappearance occurred that people called being demoned away. These strange events had happened 4 years running, and Watanagashi rapidly approaching the day after tomorrow marked the 5th.
村の旧敵にたたりをなすお社様か。今年もあるとして、果たしてその矛を受けるのは誰になるだろうね。あ、僕はここに来るたびにちゃんとお参りしてお賽銭を入れてる。僕じゃないことは確かだよ。
あらそう？近年のお社様は異邦人には特に厳しいって話よ。引っ越してきたばかりとはいえ、前原くんはちゃんとHinamizawaに住んでる村人だけど、
Yeah.
二郎さんは毎年来るだけのただのよそ者。さーて、今年は見逃してもらえるかしら。
It's really leading into like this idea of like maybe it won't be the same people this time. Maybe there's something else to brew and maybe there's something we can do. Maybe we can wield the power of Watanagashi ourselves. Man, I feel like I'm turning into a villain. But I'm really
ひどいな。
I'm getting really like on board with this idea. Tomatake-san was the only one with a pained grin, and we all were smiling, me included. Oyashiro-sama, the one who used the curse to kill people involved in the dam construction project, one after the next. He killed the dam construction manager, killed Satoko's parents for supporting it, and the next year he even killed her aunt. If the demoning away was part of that curse, then you could add Satoshi to the list of victims. As I thought about it, I realized that in several freak death incidents, the overwhelming majority had the last name of Hyojo. Half the deaths and disappearances had come from the Hyojo family. The Hojo family lived here in Hinamizawa. Did that mean Oyashiro-sama punished and cursed them particularly harshly because despite that, they had been in favor of the dam?
サトコのおじが帰ってきたって話は聞いてますか？
Oh. Takano-san, who had been enjoying a few words with Toмотake-san, was caught unaware by my sudden inquiry.
あ、ごめんなさい。今なんて？
あ、いえ。サトコの両親がたたり殺されて、おばもたたり殺されて。だったら順番的には、次はおじの番かなって思ったんです。
Oh my gosh, he's saying it.
去年のたたりで、おばが無残な死に方をし、それに恐れをなして町に逃げていたやつですよ。お社様は確か、村を捨てて逃げ出そうとするのは、許さなかったですよね。
He's on our side. I hadn't intended to be quite this persistent. But those words, they just flowed out of my mouth without me thinking about it. Right. Oyashiro-sama's curse. They didn't believe in something so unrealistic, of course, but the fact that every year unfortunate accidents and incidents happen to the enemies of the village. Like Takano-san just said now, it happened 4 times. No one could say this wouldn't be a 5th.
面白い説ね。確かに、過去の犠牲者を見れば、北条姓が多いのは事実。その延長として考えれば、今年はおじが死ぬか消えるかする可能性は否めないわね。
How oddly convenient.
もう、高野さんは、起こるかもしれない不幸を笑うのは良くないよ。
ごめんなさいね。
She is kind of creepy, but...
でも、お社様のたたりは私のライフワークだし。
Takano-san gave off a mysterious, somehow intellectual impression, and her life's work was a mystery in its own right. She probably really liked inexplicable supernatural phenomena or something.
高野さんは、お社様のたたりに詳しそうですね。どうでしょう。北条の、帰ってきたおじが、たたりに会う可能性は。
So bold.
あら、何？そのおじさんを殺したくて仕方がないみたいね。
Yeah, you're not being very subtle, dude.
そんなんじゃないです。
どうだろうね。神様の気まぐれ次第だからね。
前原くん、サンタクロースの正体は知ってる？
Huh? I got a strange question all of a sudden. I couldn't immediately answer. Oh?
なに？知らないの？
It's weird seeing this is such an interesting picture here. Wonder why.
パパよ。みんなの家のパパ。
You just gonna spell that out. What do you think he doesn't know?
なんだ、そういう意味ですか。そりゃそうですよ。どんなものの正体だって、最終的には人間です。
Oh, yeah, I agree. Everything ultimately comes down to humans in the end.
だってここは人間しかいない世界なんですから。すべての現象は人間で解明できるはずです。
Exactly. Felt like I put out somewhat strangely, but Takano-san was not dissatisfied with the reply as I might have guessed.
あら、その年齢のうちからそれに気づけるなんてなかなかね。
Yeah, exactly.
その人間の世で起こる現象は、すべて人間の都合で人間が起こす。
There's no curse. The curse is people.
では前原くん、もう一度尋ねるわよ。今度はサンタクロースじゃなくて、お社様。お社様のたたりの正体は、何かわかるかしら？
Takano-san took a step toward me and gazed into my eyes as she asked. Santa Claus is really the parents of every family's children. Spoilers, by the way. If ionizing that legend was a corporate tactic to try and profit during Christmas sales, then what was Oyashiro-sama really?
あら、あなたが言ったのよ。ここは人間しかいない世界だって。
No gods here.
すべての現象は人間で解明できるって。
圭一くん、ここだけの話だよ。高野さんはね、お社様のたたりをめぐる一連の連続開始事件をね、hinamizawaの村人が 何かの儀式に基づいて行っている人為的殺人事件でないかと見ているんだよ。
誤解しないでね。私はそれに至る教義や思想、文化を民族学的見地から研究することがライフワークなの。
She's like a hobbyist anthropologist.
別に犯人が誰かなんてことには全く興味がないのよ。そこだけ勘違いしないでちょうだいね。
I could tell that only she was saying some crazy stuff. To use the food analogy, it's like you force-fed a duck to be fattened, so you forced her words down my throat. That's what it felt like.
そもそもそれを理解するためには、Hinamizawa村が鬼ヶ淵村と呼ばれていた古代にまで遡らなければならない。鬼と血を交わらせたと信じる犯人犯気の仙人たちが。
Takano-san, having entered her home field, leaned forward and began speaking of ridiculous matters. Tomataka-san realized she was overdrawing me and interrupted for me.
高野さん、その話をいきなり圭一君にしても。ほら、彼も面食らってるよ。
あら、そう？続きに興味があったらいつでも言ってね。前原くんくらいの年頃の男の子が好きそうな。
ありがとうございます。
Sorry, I interrupted her.
気が向いたらそのうちに。
For now, I softly and safely gave my refusal. Takano-san seemed a little unhappy that Tomataka-san had rained on her parade, but she stopped talking about it then. Even so, it's all a very interesting story. That Oyashiro-sama's curse, which we thought of as strange freak deaths, were really homicides, perpetrated by the people of the village.
まあ、常識的に考えればそうですよね。たたりなんかで人が死ぬはずない。誰かがたたりになぞらえて殺してるに決まってます。
That's what I've been saying!
そうね。それが誰なのかは研究しない方が無難ね。
高野さんは知ってそうですね。証拠はないまでも確信を持っているくらいには。
あら、どうしてそう思うのかしら？
I just kind of felt it vaguely. It didn't seem like her extreme passion for this research would calm down just because these things were taboo, or because it was safer and easier. The person loved walking through the profound forbidden abyss of risks and taboo.
それくらいにしなよ、圭一君。せっかく助けてあげたのに、またお社様のたたりの話が始まっちゃうよ。涼しいうちに散策に行きたかったのにな。
Yeah. Tomataka-san seemed a little disappointed not to be able to go on the date he'd planned since he'd brought up the weird topic. But right now, there was something I wanted to ask just a little bit more. And that was about whether Satoko's uncle would be chosen for the curse this year. If he was, then another miracle would happen just like last year. A terrible incident would happen again, but it would release Satoko from her unfortunate circumstance once more.
まあ、もちろん、おそらくあの辺りの人たちが関わってるんだろうなっていう鬼ヶ淵村の歴史を研究していれば、自然と至る必然的結末。
The Sonozakis.
それは誰です？
What would I do if I knew? I asked that question to the other me deep inside, but got no reply.
熱心ね。それを知ってどうするつもりかしら？
別に。
知ったら、あなたにも危険が降りかかるかもしれないわよ。5年目のたたりはあなただったりして。
Takano-san, toying with taboo, gave a devilish, satisfied smile as though nothing in the world would be more amusing. She was probably trying to tease me, but I didn't feel like going along with her little game one bit.
偉そうな能書きでもったいぶってますが、高野さんだってよくは分かってないみたいじゃないですか。
Oh, he's trying to tease it out of her. I had a tinge of irritation at Takano-san's roundabout way of speaking. But those emotions escaped my mouth like water flowing through a strainer. Even I was surprised at how directly I had spoken about what I felt. Of course, I wasn't the only one taken aback.
あら、言ってくれるわね。坊やなのに挑発までできるの？意外に野生的ね。嫌いじゃないわよ。そういうの。
Takano-san's tongue poked out of her mouth, and I was convinced that it was long, thin, and split in the middle like a snake's.
ならいいわ。教えてあげてもよくってよ。
She's like, oh, cool.
でも、教えてあげる前に3つ誓ってもらうわ。私が何を教えても 後悔しない。
Don't regret.
口外しない。
Don't tell anyone.
私が言ったなんて
And don't tell anyone I
絶
told
対
you.
言わない。
I mean, that's fair. I gulped firmly and nodded. Tomataka-san made an exaggerated expression of distress, gave a dry, vague smile, lit a cigarette.
教えてください。たたりを下しているのは誰です？たたる相手を選んでいるのは誰なんです？
After I said that, I finally realized why I wanted to know. Yeah, I know why you want to know too, boy. I want to know too. Fetch me! I'm in the. Oh man, I'm just full on going evil here. So I wonder how accurate that is. Many of my classmates were playing freely in the schoolyard. A few of them had just run out of the school building after putting their shoes and tapping their toes on the ground. It looked like they had just finished eating lunch. From the time manipulating standpoint, I guess I succeeded.
前原さん、大丈夫なんですか？
A few girls noticed me and came running over. It was only natural they were worried. You'd think if someone wasn't there in the morning, they'd be out for the rest of the day.
まあ遅刻さ、気にしないでくれ。それよりSatokoはどうだ？今日は来てるか？
The girls exchanged glances. I saw a thin shadow fall over their faces and knew the answer without needing to hear them reply. Satoko was absent today too. When all was said and done, after being out 3 days, she'd only come back for 1. And now she was out again. Who knew if she would come tomorrow?
うん。でも、さとこちゃんから電話があったって先生言ってました。風邪って言ってたよね。みんな家に帰ったらうがいをちゃんとしましょうって先生言ってました。
Wait a minute, Chi-san sensei. That little too thick-headed, don't you think? You're a teacher, aren't you? Why can't you be more sensitive and catch on to the fact that your pupil's sending out an SOS? But even if she did, there was nothing we could hope for. The most she could do was home visitation. She didn't have any right to take Satoko from her uncle into safety. No matter the result, it would end up just like the public agencies with a wait-and-see attitude. It would just piss Satoko's uncle off, and her suffering would only grow deeper. That wasn't saying she had a cold the best option.
そうだな。みんなも風邪に気をつけろよ。もう行っていいぜ。昼休みはまだ長いぞ。
The girls excitedly scattered to the schoolyard. Rena was yelling out the classroom window, waving her hand. A moment later, Mia and Rika-chan poked their heads out too.
圭一までお休みしましたから、とても心配しましたのですよ。でもよかった。顔色もそんなに悪くないし、とりあえず元気そう。
I feel a little uncomfortable with her saying that. I didn't look sick, but I didn't care that much.
どうしたの？寝坊？
遅刻は遅刻だろ。それとも、電車の事故で遅刻したとでも言えば、許してくれるのか？
寝坊？
Mia was being a bit persistent. Was she going to put on a club president cap and scold me for being late? I'm sure she was actually worried you were trying to like intervene with Satoko. Well, maybe she didn't have it in it for me, so I briefly stated that she was right.
まだね、お弁当あるよ。みんなで食べよう。やっぱりね、圭一くんがいないと盛り上がらないよね。
Satokoは休みなんだな。
Even Rena, feigning cheerfulness, couldn't stand to hear that. Her face darkened.
朝、電話があったらしいよ。風邪がぶり返したから、また休むってさ、長引くかもしれないって言ってた。
Oh gosh.
かわいそうなので、みんなでお見舞いに行こうという話が出ていますのですよ。
何言ってんだよ、リカちゃん。
Not pleased with Rika-chan wearing a white smile as though it were a happy occasion, I threw cold water on her.
サトコが風邪なんかじゃないことは、俺たちが一番知ってるだろ。たとえ冗談でも、二度とそういう白々しいことを言うな。次は怒るからな。
Rika-chan furrowed her brow, looked down, and mumbled an apology.
圭一くんだけじゃないよ。みんな辛いよ。
俺だけが悩んでるなんて思ってない。でも、みんな何もできないのは本当だろ。
それはそうだけど。でも。
I got the feeling I would cause another fight if this exchange went on. So I apologized first.
ごめん、謝るから、今の話は忘れてくれ。辛いのは、みんなも同じだよな。ああ。
It was at least clear, however, that I was the only one who had worried so much about rescuing her. At the very least, everyone else has probably got a normal amount of sleep last night. I right-clicked for some reason, sorry. Probably had good dreams, too. They definitely hadn't stayed up all night thinking so desperately.
登校してきていきなりこんなこと聞いて、気を悪くするかもしれないけど、ケイちゃん、今日遅刻したよね。サトコが今日欠席したこととは関係ある？
は？
Oh, wait, what?
ミオ、お前、何の話してるんだ？
ケイちゃんはたまに、ちょっとつ盲信なところがあるからね。
She's right there, actually.
今朝、サトコと一緒にケイちゃんも休んだと
Do you
き、
think they ran off together?
サトコを家から連れ出して、どこかにかくまったんじゃないかって
I mean,
本気で思った。
no, I totally wasn't thinking about doing that. Easy for you to say. If you could have, if I could have, I would have done it last night. None of them had really thought about how difficult that clear as day solution was. I was up all night thinking until the night was brightening. And then, I concluded that couldn't do anything of the sort.
バカかお前。人間一人かくまうなんて、できるもんかよ。
そうだね。ごめん。気を悪くしたなら謝るよ。
別にいいよ。それより、飯にしようぜ。腹が減ってんだ。
I took my bento box out of my bag. Everyone moved to make a spot for me to sit.
前原くん、
Oh, here we go.
今来たんですか？
And just as I was about to stick my chopsticks in, Chie-sensei came along.
あ、はい。遅刻してすみません。寝坊しまして。
What the heck? Even the teacher was giving me that strange look.
お弁当を食べたら、院長と前原くんは職員室に来てください。
Oh boy.
ちょっとお話がありますので。
Probably about Satoko, I thought. Sensei left at that, went back to the hallway.
弁当を食うまでもないだろう。行こうぜ、ミオ。
そうだね。
Mia and I exchanged looks, nodded at each other, and got up.
さとこちゃんの話だろうね。
No doubt about it. They were saying she had a cold, but everyone in class knew the truth. I didn't think that wouldn't have reached a teacher's ears by now.
僕がずっととぼけるので、僕に聞くのをやめたのでしょう。
Revealing the truth to the teacher would only worsen the situation. Was that why she hadn't said anything? Or was it because Satoko's friend, and knew that she was trying to endure the trial of her uncle's abuse in order to get her brother to come home?
どうする？今のうちに私たちなりの統一見解を出した方がいいかもね。
リカちゃんはどうしたい？
Satoko's closest and best friend was Rika-chan. However much I pretended to be her Nini, it didn't come close to the amount of time they'd spent together. So I felt like her opinion should be held in the highest regard.
俺は、サトコがどうしておじにいじめられてるのを耐えてるか知ってる。
Everyone looked startled and turned to me.
昔のサトコはいじめられると、きっと泣きながら兄の背中に隠れてた。でも結局、そのせいで兄が逃げてしまったんだと、サトコは思ってる。
Yeah.
誰に聞いたのかな？監督か。
Mm-hmm. I nodded quietly.
サトコは、おじのいじめに耐えれば、兄が帰ってくると信じることによって、今を耐え抜こうとしてるのかもしれない。でも、そんな思い込みとサトシが帰ってくるのは、サトコには悪いが、それが現実だ。
Everyone hung their heads. Everyone was thinking the same thing.
サトコは、多分誰の助けも喜ばない。自分一人の力で耐え忍びたいと思ってる。でも、それを尊重してやるのが、果たして正しいだろうか。俺は思わない。一時、サトコに恨まれることになろうと、サトコの意志に関わらず、助けるべき時があると思う。俺はそれが、今じゃないかと思ってる。
I told them all about what I saw and how I felt when went to Satoko's house yesterday.
ケイチ君は話すべきだと思ってるってことだね。
I want to.
もちろん、公的機関への通報で、サトコが保護されるのが確定してからだ。その確認のないうちは、サトコをかえって危険にさらすこともあり得るからな。
難しいね。先生との会話の中で、その確約ってのが取れるわけ？
I'm not sure. I had no confidence. But we had to try. Meanwhile, Rika-chan had her hand raised for a while as if asking for an opportunity to speak.
圭一に任せますです。
Okay.
いいのかいリカちゃん。
圭一はここにいる誰よりも聡子のことを考えていますです。
Oh, dang.
その圭一が話すべき時だと判断したなら。
ありがとう。ミオンもレナもそれでいいか？
Mion seemed to hesitate, not knowing if she should agree. But when she saw Rena's firm nod, she made up her mind and did the same.
よし、行くぞ、ミオン。
Alright, we're trying. I think we're gonna run into the same problems, but we're trying. Only Chie-sensei was in the teacher's lounge. We didn't see the principal anywhere. The schedule on the blackboard under the principal's name said training going straight home. Our principal's sense of justice was too strong. Satoko's problems wouldn't be solved by something so vague. Maybe it was a stroke of good luck he wasn't here. When the teacher saw Mion and I come in, she closed up her curry bento, saving the rest for later. Dang, she put her curry down for us? That's serious. Oh. She told us to take a seat in the chairs directly in front of the principal's seat. I hadn't sat in the chair since doing the paperwork to transfer in. The two of us sat there uncomfortably, but before the teacher walked over carrying a notebook and a ballpoint pen and sat in front of us.
前原くん、今日は午前中お休みでしたけど、何かありましたか？
すみません、寝坊です。
本当に？
先生に嘘言っても。
She narrowed her eyes at me in suspicion. Now I was sure of it. She wanted to talk about Satoko.
まず、二人とも知ってると思いますけど、お友達の北条さんがここしばらくお休みしてますね。
Neither Mion nor I had anything to say in response. But the teacher proceeded, not minded.
何か知っていますか？クラスで良くない噂をしている人たちがいます。
Mion looked down and remained silent as though she was being lectured. She sent me a quick glance. Everyone had made up their minds. They'd be leaving things to me.
委員長？前原くんも。先生は別に怒ってるんじゃありませんよ。もしも知っていたら、教えてほしいとお願いしているだけです。
先生、先にこっちから質問してもいいですか？
She must not have anticipated that response. She looked surprised.
クラス中で聡子のどんな噂が飛び交ってるかは知りませんが、仮にその噂が真実だったとして、先生はどうするつもりですか？
Wow, listen to that possible deniability. I don't know what the rumors are, but if they were true, what would you do?
どうするもこうするも、その話が本当なら放っておけません。
放っておけないって、具体的にはどう放っておけないんですか？
Sensei's eyebrows shot up. Maybe I'd said it like I was trying to pick a fight.
前原くん、先生は真面目にお話ししてるんですよ。
先生こそ、俺はすごく真面目な話をしているんです。まず答えてください。真実だったとして、どう放っておけないんです？
Sensei took a few deep breaths and began to speak slowly.
まず、状況を確かめるために、北条さんの家を家庭訪問します。
おじに怒鳴りつけられて、追い返されるかもしれませんね。まあいいや。仮におじと聡子に会えたとします。それで？
そして、真意を聞きます。その事実が確認できたなら、指導します。
指導って曖昧な言い方はやめてくだ。具体的には何をするんですか？
Even despite my tone being so provocative, Chie-sensei bit back her emotions and listened calmly. I thought that she was a good teacher. Chie-sensei really did have her students' best interest at heart. But she didn't have the power or authority to save Satoko. If she let her sense of justice run away with her, the situation could get more complex. Sensei folded her arms, and for a few moments she closed her eyes as though mentally concentrating. And when they opened again, there was a strictness in her eyes I'd never seen before.
児童福祉法という法律があります。この法律で、児童に対する虐待は何人に対しても認められていないことが明記されています。
らしいですね。それで？
沖宮の生活相談所へ通報します。さっき、前原くんは追い返されると言いましたね。この相談所の職員は、必要に応じて警察官を同行させることができます。恫喝には絶対に屈しません。
Maybe.
その福祉士というお役所の人は、連絡して書類で申請して、何日後に助けに来てくれるんです？
即日です。彼らの仕事は児童の安全を緊急に保護することですから。
Dang, the response time's pretty good.
知ってますよ。緊急性があると判断された場合ですよね。認められなかったら、先生と同じ。指導をして、様子見をするんですよね。見てるだけ。聡子の叔父の機嫌を悪くして、聡子をその場に残したまま、それっきり。
ケイちゃん、ちょっと言い過ぎ。
No, it's not though. It's repeating history.
嘘はついてないだろ。去年だか一昨年だかに、児童相談所が来た時が、まさにそうだったんだろう。その結果どうなった？俺よりも、ミオや先生の方が、よっぽどよく知ってるだろうが。
I had said too much. I didn't need Mion to tell me that. I was taken crazy and itching for a fight. I was supposed to be telling her about the situation only after I was sure we could save Satoko, but I basically told her everything right from the start. Chie-sensei looked at the clock, stood up, picked up the phone at the principal's seat.
もしもし、内線の3455をお願いします。
Crap.
いいの？ケイちゃん、本当に、大丈夫かな？
I was too late. The die had already been cast. Now we could only pray.
お世話になっております。Hinamizawa文校教諭の千恵と申しますが、指導室の渡辺主事はいらっしゃいますでしょうか？はい、ええ。ちょっと急用がございまして、至急校長と連絡が取りたいのですが、はい、お願いします。緊急とお伝えください。よろしくお願いします。
The teacher put down the phone, and I tilted her head back and took a breath like I always did.
二人にもう一度だけ聞きます。クラスのみんなの噂は、すべて本当なんですね。
はい。俺は昨日、聡子の家に行って、実際にどういうことになっているのか
あとは、先生に任せてください。聡子ちゃんは、きっと先生が何とかします。
なんとか？いい加減なことを言わないでください。なんとかじゃない。絶対でなければならない。もしもまた様子見なんてことになったら、先生はどう責任を取るつもりですか？
While I was yelling, the phone rang. Chie-sensei snatched up the receiver first.
もしもし。研修中申し訳ありません。はい。実は、例の北条聡子さんの件でお話が。はい。
Sensei waved us away, telling us we could leave now. Mion wanted to leave, but I held my ground. I had the responsibility to make sure she stopped saying such vague, ambiguous things. If I didn't look like she was going to say anything substantial, then I'd tell them the truth, even if I had to steal the phone from her.
はい。いえ、まだ相談所には、はい。まだ確認はしていませんが、クラスの子の話では相当な様子です。
相当なんてもんじゃないぞ。すぐにだ。今すぐ何とかしろ。通報するならどこへだっていい。でもな、もしも様子見なんてことになってみろ。ただじゃ済まさないからな。
I yelled angrily at Sensei and the principal on the other end. I wanted to somehow, some way, convey to them just how dangerous her situation was right now.
それは分かっています。ちゃんと伝えますから。委員長、前原くんを連れて教室に戻りなさい。はい。
Like, Keiichi, we trusted you. Why are you just screaming at everyone like usual? Oh, wait a minute. Maybe we should have seen this coming. Subtlety is not his nature.
あとは先生たちに任せよう。
絶対だぞ。
Until the very last moment, I glared at Sensei. Chie-sensei was feeling pressured by the likes of me. Idiot, this isn't the time to feel pressured. Now's the time when you give me a firm nod and reassure me. Even so, we've already left things in her hands. At this point, we really can't do anything but pray. Dang. Mion shut the door of the teacher's lounge. What was that? What? That did not go well at all. I actually genuinely didn't think it was going to move like that. But I don't think it'll end well. Yeah, article and stats. Cool. Ask for help from a grown-up. That's not gonna end well. I'm telling you. Watanagashi! I mean, it sounds like we might have got a named contact, and maybe that's what the thing is. Maybe that's why he's willing to take the step, because if it doesn't get resolved, he's gonna be like, alright, we got plan B. Plan B is to invoke the curse. Alright, let's see the tips real quick. So article and then statistics. Article. Article 2, definition of child abuse. Oh, just lovely. The term child abuse means the following acts committed by a custodian, meaning a person who exercises parental authority, a guardian of a minor, or other person who is currently engaged in the custody of a child. Hereinafter, the same shall apply. Against a child, meaning a person who is under 18 years of age. Hereinafter, as the same shall apply. 1. Assault the child in a manner that will cause or is likely to cause external injury on the body of the child. 2. Engage in indecency against the child or cause the child to engage in indecency. 3. Substantially reduce the amount of food for the child or abandon and neglect the child for a long period of time in a manner that may interfere with normal development of a child's child mentally or physically, or otherwise maternally fail to perform the duties of a custodian. Or 4. Speak or behave in a manner that would significantly traumatize the child. Article 3, prohibition of child abuse. No person shall abuse a child. Act number 82 of 2000. Authorized by the Ministry of Health and Welfare. So it's defining it. It's so cold, but it's true. And then statistics. Again, you really can see like the real world application, the real world power of this story, because like it's not hypothetical or like these whispered ghost stories or curses. This is just like cold hard facts coming. Year 19 something something. Principal abuser in cases of report to the Ministry of Health and Welfare. Total 5,352. Mother by blood 2,943, 55%. Mother not by blood 203, 3.8%. Father by blood 1,445, 27%. Father not by blood 488, 9.1%. Year. Incidents of types of abuse in cases reported to the Ministry of Health and Welfare. And that's the thing, is like they also estimate that the only ones that are being reported tend to be the worst. And of those, not all of them are even like actionable. But you gotta also think that there's plenty of abuse that occurs that never gets reported because it doesn't even get as far down that line as to the point where people will call it in. Total 5,352. Physical abuse 2,780, 51%. Neglect, abandonment of child, 1,728, 32.3%. Psychological abuse, 458, 8.6%. I think that one's the highest in reality, but it's also the least reported. Forbidden from going to school, 75, 1.4%. Sexual violence, 311, 5.8%. Oh, don't be playing the music now. Oh, don't. Don't, you better not. I'm going to kill him myself. I'm going to reach through the screen and I'm going to become Oyashiro-sama. I'm just going to take him, just rip him to pieces myself if I have to. That stuff's disgusting. I can't believe that that's a real thing that happens in real life, and it drives me crazy. I can't believe it. Like, I'm not in a good mood right now. Fetch me. All right, so I don't think it's going to go well. I really, I'm genuinely like really interested to see if we actually can invoke the curse ourselves here. Like, I really want to see if we can do that. Cause like, holy crap, does it feel like this is a good chance for it? So we're gonna keep the creepy music going now, huh? Oh baby. All right, so thanks for being here. Hope you enjoyed. Well, I mean, enjoyed is a word, isn't it? I hope you enjoyed the process of me going through my thoughts about all of this and sharing what I think and feel and kind of watching my emotions, because that's probably the only enjoyment you should get from this kind of a story. Fetch me. But yeah. Don't like that at all. Don't like it at all. So I am not very happy. I don't think it's going to be a fun couple episodes. I mean, none of these are always fun, but like this one just makes me feel like there's bile in my mouth. It makes me want to puke because it's too real, and that's what sucks. So yeah. Yeah. All right. So we'll hold on and hopefully we'll find a solution in the future. But for now, hope you have a good week. I hope it's not as dark as this is. Let's get back to our usual programming, and you know, hopefully all of you are in good positions and healthy and not in danger. Unfortunately, it's too real, and it makes it hard to even talk about this type of stuff, but I think we should. We should talk about it because it happens. We should be aware. We should be watchful. We should be willing to step in to try and say something or to do something. And it sucks because like you gotta watch that line if you want to do things by properly and by the books. You have to be so careful. But we still can't just sit back and do nothing. So let's be careful. Let's move forward and hopefully see progress be made in a good direction. Less evil in the world, and that the evil that is there gets caught. Guy, you want to get angry about this kind of stuff too? Just go watch the Chris Hansen stuff where he like catch a predator, or like the newer stuff he's been doing. Just there's still so many people out there willing to terrorize young people. It's so gross. Anyway, hope you have a good night. I'll talk to you later. And so until the next video, watch me up. See me next. I'll see you there.